What is going on, everybody? Got to readjust that camera. Just like last week, something went wrong at the beginning. We got these autofocus cameras, so when our guests slid in today, it followed them, and it wasn't even on me to start here. So
just like these cars these days, we don't need no daggum automatics. Let's go back to manuals.
Do not lead lane assist with my cameras. Welcome to Leave It at the Table. I'm Kyle Wright, with always Drew Gorman sitting across the table from me. Drew, almost late again today.
Hey. Let's make sure my camera wakes up.
There
okay.
she blows.
At least he laid it or left it somewhere near the table last week, right?
Yeah, you left it somewhere. Yeah, well.
Beside it.
How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm great.
Yeah?
I'm great. It stuck with me for a couple days, but I'm great.
Couple days, really?
Okay, well, we'll get into that.
Yeah, okay, all right.
We'll get into that in a second because you've already heard the voices.
I'm spoiling the spoilers.
Yeah. We'll introduce our guest here today. Back from last week, of course, David Hayes did the Hot Ones Challenge with us last week. David, you want to say what's up?
What's up, brother?
And of course, difficult conversation that we're talking about tonight that we'll get to in just a second. But wanted to invite you. Heard about this conversation. You said, "Can I be on it?" And we're like, "Absolutely, why not?" So, welcome to the table, Tina Fisher, my aunt.
Thank you. Am I the first female at
I
the
think
table?
so. Yeah, first female at the table. Well, I don't know, Drew. 2024. How you feeling?
He's looking manly with the beard. I'll say that.
Very manly today.
You can qualify for the Olympics.
I will, for one, say that. Yeah, that's actually a great point, but neither here nor there. I will say that I'm really excited. Honestly, I'm excited about this particular episode just to be able to listen and honestly listen to you, because in a conversation like this, I believe wisdom is of the utmost importance, and you can really only gain wisdom by age and experience.
I agree. Thank you.
So there we go. All right, so before we get into this week's topic, I just want to thank everybody for last week, everybody that watched, everybody that listened. Of course, I said this in the video I made today, but man, today was just incredible. Last week was just incredible. We had a great time. So many viewers, so much interaction, so many comments, so many questions that you guys poured in, because we had about 20 to 25 questions pre-prepared. We had to read most of them after the show.
Yeah. Which was fun, by the way, as well.
No,
we should have had the cameras rolling for like a little BTS behind the scenes.
A little behind the scenes.
Post-game show.
Yeah.
It was a great time, man. So thank everybody for their support. Man, it was not so fun the night of, right? Drew, you had
I loved the night of. The morning after, I needed a pill or something. No, the morning after was a little rough, and then around 4 o'clock that afternoon, I was like, all right, we're good to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
Can I interrupt this to say y'all might want to remind some folks of what you're talking about, because not everybody may have seen.
No, that's fair. So last Wednesday, our inaugural episode, we did the Hot Ones Challenge. If you're unfamiliar with the Hot Ones Challenge,
get out from underneath that rock.
Yeah, type it into YouTube after our show. Don't do it now. If you do it now, you're going to get hooked and you're going to miss our entire show. And this is a good one. This is a very bad one to miss. So after we get done, go type Hot Ones into YouTube and go watch some of that stuff. It's a 10 hot wing challenge. We did McDonald's chicken nuggets because, number one, we're poor. Number two, we were short on time.
I love the number one answer there, brother.
Oh, so
it's like Family Feud. Ding, 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 baby.
Survey says. So each wing gets progressively hotter, and you read and answer a question in between each one. You guys sent a lot of great questions in last week. It was an incredible episode. We had a great time. Drew had a rough day the next day, too.
Actually showed up for work and got a text at 3:30 a.m. from one of my coworkers saying that he was feeling sick and wouldn't be in.
Me too, sucker.
Yeah. So and he knew I was doing the Hot Wings Challenge, and I texted him back. I was like, "You're not coming in? Like, I'm supposed to be the one with stomach issues. What's going on?" Well, I showed up for work and probably made it 5 minutes into the first job.
Dolls gets $1?
Yeah.
Drew's getting a dime, baby.
Yeah, I install window treatments now, so I'm 5 minutes into this first job, and immediately I'm like, I gotta find a bathroom. So go take care of my business and go about my day. But that was the aftermath. I should have had a lot of ice cream, so I could just be sitting there saying, "Come on, ice cream, cool it down, let's go."
So I was fine for the first half of the day on Thursday, the day after, and then around 1 o'clock or maybe 12 o'clock, I had my the first run in, and I'm like, okay, well that was unpleasant, and so we got to the station. Actually, I did the radio with David the next day, and I was like, dude, I don't know what's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen, but it could happen at any time. So we would just listen to the top half of the last 3 innings of the Braves game.
Don't give away the secret. No, I'm just kidding.
But it was we just listened to the top half of the Braves. Also, let's be honest.
Oh, look, Jordan Gibbs says, go Inter Miami. Guess what? No one cares. Messi's not even playing right now, bro. No, I'm just kidding, Jordan.
Is he not? Why is he not playing?
Because he's in the Copas right now.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. And then Olympics starting in a couple weeks, right?
2024, 2024. My goodness, where have I been?
We're here.
July, but it's only 23 and under.
Okay. Oh well, never mind. Okay.
Our American coach isn't even American.
That's
sad.
Okay.
But he's a good coach, right? So
well, good.
There's that.
So obviously next week it will be just Drew and I. Want to plug that at the beginning of the episode. I think we're going to talk some baseball.
Oh, definitely.
We'll see what else is on the docket for next week. A little maybe. Just like the death of the NBA, I guess. Like how this offseason is just, I don't care.
I'm just tired of hearing about Bronny.
Yeah, well.
Literally everything across my phone is Bronny.
But if it wasn't for Bronny, there would literally be almost no NBA news. Like the biggest thing that happened was washed up Klay Thompson leaving the
And
Warriors.
that's sad.
Right. That's where we are in the NBA now. So we'll talk a little NBA. We'll talk a little baseball next week. So next week's episode will be sports. Obviously, Dave, you got an open invite anytime.
Open invite, but I am playing softball next Wednesday at Lynn Haven. So
there you go.
Invite declined, but not because I want to, because I have to.
If it rains, it's July.
If it rains, I'll be pouring in here, brother.
That would be great. So obviously, open invite, and obviously, Tina, we already have an episode planned for you to come back closer to when school gets ready to start. Probably sometimes towards the end of July, I would think. So we'll tease that as we get closer. We also have another idea for another challenge that will be maybe announcing officially next week after we get some details worked out. All right, so today's topic, guys.
Just bring your brother.
We're talking about the separation between church and Christians, and this is I would say this has always been a thing, right? I think that this feeling has always been something that people have gotten, but I think
it's biblical when you go back to even the New Testament days, right. Even with Paul and some of the things he would go on to explain in his, I was going to say gospel, but that's not the gospel as much as it is his books. So.
Right. So going all the way back, this isn't a new thing, but however, in the age of social media, in the age of, everything's social now. Everything's known. Everything's out there. Like everything's public. It's now more prevalent than ever, and people are speaking up. People are speaking out, and less people are going to church than ever right now. And I don't go to church, and we're gonna go around the table and we're gonna talk about like our beliefs and everything like that. And we don't have to go too crazy into the whole like, do you believe why I believe thing? Kind of, if you want to. Absolutely.
It's like, are you on your way to heaven right now?
Because Drew, you have the most interesting story on the whole belief thing, because you mentioned last week, can I use the words that you used? Do you care?
Go ahead.
Drew is the black sheep of his family.
And I will preface that because my parents possibly will be watching this.
Pretty racist. I'm the Mexican sheep of my family. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my goodness.
Maybe not live, but they will be watching. My dad hates it that I say I think of myself as the black sheep of the family. But
go ahead and put it on Drew here, and go ahead and explain.
So my family has gone to church for as long as I can remember, back to my grandparents and so on and so forth. And my parents, as long as I can remember, they've been very active in the church. My dad was a youth pastor a couple times. My mom was a worship leader, and my mom is the current for their church in Tennessee. She is the pastor's secretary and helps out with all that. And they're always at the church. And back whenever I lived with them growing up, we were there every Wednesday, every Tuesday, any time that there was a service or something happening at the church. If those doors were unlocked and open, we were there. And now that I've gotten into my adult age, I don't know if I necessarily got burnt out from going so many times and going all the time, or if it was just a change in mindset. I honestly couldn't tell you what I believe. I do believe that there is a God. I just don't know how prevalent it is, and I don't think enough about that side of things. I just kind of take it day to day and control what I can control and let the chips fall where they may. And that could be the completely wrong thing to be doing. It can be right. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all trying to be the best person we can be, I hope. So that's and so now I don't go to church. I went to church in Chattanooga for a little bit, but it was mainly for the fellowship. I wanted to be around not necessarily like-minded people, but I wanted to be around people who were happy, who I made friends with people and really enjoyed being around those people. It really wasn't there to go listen to a message or go praise and worship and do stuff like that. It was more to be around people that I liked and had fun with.
How much does that happen, right? Like because that was me for a long time, and this was after the stories that I'll tell here in a little bit. This was like I started, like I had attached myself to another church in between the big two, and the only reason I was going is because I played
at a big three.
Yeah, big three.
Let's go Miami.
I had a big two in the churches that I spent a lot of time in my life, and I had a couple in between. One that I really only went to because, number one, I played on their softball team, and back then you actually had to go to the church
at least once a month, right? Or was it every Sunday?
No, you had to be there. Like you had to even go to the church to sign up for the team. We're talking like back in 2010,
which is actually quite sensible, I would say. But
yeah, absolutely. So that's completely gotten lost. That's a whole softball. That would be a fun episode.
And I do have a comment on that, I guess, at a later portion. But while we're at it, I guess, because it's real quick. So I was going to First Baptist, and they had softball. So, of course, I signed up for it or whatever. And then we get an email, and it's like, yeah, as long as you come once a month, that's cool. And I'm like, all right. But then, like, half the team's like, all right, maybe they're there once a month or whatever, which, hey, whatever, And also, this is a little bit bigger of a church, so who am I to say you were there or you weren't there or whatever? But it is wild. That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, it just a whole new rabbit hole that you could jump down with that whole conversation. But so with that being said, that's the only reason that I went to that church is because I signed up for the softball team. And I made a lot of friends in there, and I was going for them. I wasn't going for the main reason. Jake McGowan commenting there through Facebook saying church softball is going to have its own show.
Hey, shout out Jake. He was on the show today, and I would love to do whatever. Whatever.
I do think that would be like just softball.
I would love to listen to that.
Just a Panama City softball episode would be.
I'm sorry, but we're all getting serious, and then there's this comment from Josh Tucker. Do y'all see it? Down toward third comment from the bottom.
Dude Wipes would have been a great sponsor for After the Hot One Challenge. That's.
I'm sorry.
No,
mine was pretty easy to wipe.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry I brought it up.
No, that's fine. Bring them up. If you see any that you want to hit on, Shelby obviously saying hi to you there. Got a great testimony to read from her today as well.
Yay.
Love so Shelby, she didn't mind if we share her name. A couple of these wanted to remain anonymous. That
last name is social as well. No, for Shelby.
Oh.
We're sharing her testimony.
Yeah,
what
Shelby,
about last name? All right, and Social Security.
Yeah, well, that's true. So
all right,
billing address would be.
I'm trying to get into the hacking game, brother.
I just didn't understand what you were getting at there. All right, so let's go to Dave here. Dave, do you go to church? Why do you? Why don't you?
Okay, so
and we can get
at this point in time, it's actually all right. So I would say right now I'm not going to church, but I am going to church. So like, it's probably been 5 weeks since I've been on a Sunday, 3 weeks since I've been on a Wednesday, just to keep it honest. Now on Wednesday, it's really tough because I have to end the show at 5:40 in order for me to even be close to being not even on time, but to being there where it's kind of not disrespect. I know it's not disrespectful to walk in late, right? But I'm not getting there till 6:20, 6:30. It's halfway over at that point. So there's that. Sundays, it's an excuse. It's not a reason at all. But I'm like, man, like I'm sleeping. I'm staying up pretty late, trying to get through my career on MLP The Show. You know what I mean? So I'm sleeping in on Sundays. And here's the honest kind of fact about it. Once you miss that first one, I went like 8 months straight again after kind of getting back into it. Once you miss that first one, it just becomes easy. It becomes very, very easy. And here's the other thing. Church ain't getting nobody into heaven. And I'm not saying that as an excuse to leave, but as someone who's like, you know, what's getting me into heaven is the blood of Jesus Christ. Like, all right, if I miss a couple of Sundays, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't think that's the biggest priority in the mind of God, in the mind of Jesus, when he looks down at me and is like, oh, you didn't go to church, but you treated that person pretty daggum good and you didn't even know it. You know what I'm saying? So honestly, no, not going to church right now. Raised in the church. My dad was a pastor. My mom was a pastor's wife, I guess, but like that's a title of many titles.
That's a job all in itself.
Right. I mean, not only that, she homeschools us. She teaches Sunday school. She cleans the church. My mom, shout out to my mom and my dad. The raising that I had, man, especially growing up, starting here for a little bit, but going down to St. Pete and the experience there and being able to be at the young mind of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and see how church people react to what pastors and pastors' wives do. And so you get an inner look at like the people of the church, if you will. Then you get out of that and you see some of the other mistakes people have made or whatever. And then maybe you get on that prejudgment discourse or whatever, like I have been on. And then I got kicked out of church by a pastor one day locally, but I'm not going to throw his name out here or whatever. And in fact, it's funny that I even mentioned that because until this year, I hadn't even... I thought about it a lot for about the first 3 to 5 years because I was like, I'm done with church. I'm done with church. Then this year, I'm sitting outside and I'm thinking about people that I should like forgive. You know what I mean? Because normally I'm really good about that. Like, you do me wrong. All right, I've done a lot of things wrong. So who am I? So anyways, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, man, I call my dad actually. I'm like, do I need to go physically forgive this man? You know what I'm saying? Because why am I even thinking about it? And that brings me to essentially, no, I don't currently. I wouldn't say that I'm not a member of a church. And in fact, I'll say I'll never be a member of a church. I'll never be. And that's no shame to people who are a member of a church. Just me personally. That's not my ideology because I'm a Christian, not a Baptist, and I grew up Baptist. But I don't claim no daggum denomination. I feel like that is one of the biggest killers of the church, if you will.
So you had said to me a couple of weeks ago, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, that you had felt yourself at one point later into like the new church that you were going to, that you were only going so you wouldn't get judged at one point.
No. So technically, you're right.
Okay, sorry. Maybe I didn't mean to like.
No. You're fine. Bringing that up is, and it kind of gives me a recollection of it, if you will. So when I woke up the Sunday and I decided, all right, I'm not going because I was too tired or whatever the excuse was. And then when I thought about it some, I'm like, wait, I'm only worried really that I'm not going to church because of what those people at the church are going to be thinking what I'm doing. And that's when it was like, to some extent, and this is where it kind of, gets crazy in my mind when I'm thinking about it split at a time, but that was like one of the justifications of it, if you will. It's like, all right, well, you're only worried about what people think of you, and there's 24 hours in a day. You're in church on Sunday, let's say, go there, 9 o'clock, ends at 12, 3 hours or so. And that's if I go to Sunday school, you know what I mean? But I will say, the church that I was going to, there is no qualms there. I want to go back there. You know what I mean? I miss it each and every time that I miss. That will never be the church hurt.
So that
at all.
So that feeling was more of a David Hayes feeling. It wasn't a from the church feeling.
Yeah, at all. Okay. At all. And I want to exclaim that to the top of the mountains.
Yeah.
I felt more welcome at that church. Not just welcome, brother. When I tell you that felt like the most real church, let me say, because I've been to a lot of churches, that felt like one of the most authentic versions of what church should be, where it's, hey, you ain't got no food? Oh, look, Sunday morning, we're feeding you. Oh, you ain't got no clothes? Wednesday night, we got clothes over here on the table for you. Like, it felt like one of the most, especially most excellent way, led by Rick McClung over there at First Baptist Church, and Bart Barnett, Chris. I mean, all of these guys, I tell you, I feel like me not going, I'm missing out on more spiritually fed, not going, than what I am sitting, to be quite frank with you, sitting here doing this with you on a Wednesday night. Yeah. I feel like that's where I should be.
No, absolutely.
And not because of the people, but because of how I leave that place.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I 100% respect for that. Before we go any further, I'll get to you just a second, Tina. I know you've got a lot of stories to share here, but I want to set some ground rules for today. If we're talking and something negative comes up about wherever you've been, we're not, and obviously I've got a lot of messages and comments and stuff that mention specific churches. I'm not, I would just like to not mention any churches specifically in any negative nature today. Now, obviously,
positive shout outs are okay.
Positive shout outs.
Okay, all right, cool.
And that's what I was going to get at, because I felt like you were kind of skating around it there for a second.
No, it was 100% positive. I won't. Yeah. I will never mention any really any place in a negative manner, because if I do that, well, I'm already open, I guess, as a human being to being negatively perceived or whatever. But I mean, come on now. We all got some things wrong with us, right? So I ain't coming after nobody, especially as a person who's on a mic 5 times a week.
Yeah. No, so I just wanted to make sure we set that ground rule. And this isn't, I want everybody out there to understand, this isn't a church bashing episode. This was not. The intent of this was not for us to come on here tonight and talk bad about church for 2 hours. It was, or an hour and a half, or however long we're here. It was basically to shine a light on the things that are happening in the church, to make people understand. You know, maybe there's people out there who are in a great church. This will make you understand that, like, people want to go to church. People have always wanted to go to church, but now you know why we don't. And if you are in a church that you feel comfortable in, that you feel great in, invite us. I'd love to come check out your church.
I think Caitlin Stewart has a great comment up here. Church is just a weekly. Oh wait, that's not the one. It's the one you have highlighted, actually. So,
or Jeffrey does. Reading Caitlin's.
Yeah, church is just a weekly club, a book club meeting. Think about it. People gather and talk about a book, the Bible, which is, I mean, that's a fair, even though it's passive aggressive somewhat, whatever, still a fair comment, because we do. And we talk about, you know what, you could have put the capitalized in front of the book, because it is literally the book.
Right.
Yeah. I would say that, but that's opinion.
You want to read my mom's there? A little nervous talking about some of my stuff today with my mom in the comments. By the way.
Ooh, shout out Francis. It doesn't matter if it's Pentecostal, if it's Baptist, Presbyterian, etc. There's going to be people that play the I'm better than card. There's people that are judgmental no matter where you go or who you, period.
Can I touch on that?
I think it means
are,
though.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So both of my in-laws, my father-in-law was a pastor of a church, and my mother-in-law was the pastor's wife. Obviously, big titles, big jobs. Not going into too much detail, but there were a couple things that happened with my sister-in-law at the time while they were pastors, and it kind of shut down the church, because it kind of threw a divide in between my father-in-law and my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law. And it got the churchgoers, the people, the congregation, they looked at what my sister-in-law was doing as wrong, biblically speaking. Whereas my father-in-law was preaching the grace message, which is, for those that don't know, yes, you sin, yes, this happens, but hey, God has grace. It's okay. We're here to take care of, God will take care of it. Everything's fine. Just be better. Cliff notes. Well, my father-in-law, he has like 3 different PhDs in all kind of different things. He's a super smart guy, and probably gaining some points by saying that on a podcast. On a
Shout out G Paul.
Yeah. So it made him think a little bit more about like what really is in the Bible, and read a little bit more, because obviously the love of a father looking at his daughter is like one of the greatest things in the world. Looking at your kid and saying, that's mine, that love is great. And he started reading more and more other books. He's always a reader. He loved, like, anytime I go over to his house, he's got a book in his hand. And it just, the more and more that he read, the more and more he saw other perspectives of different things, and kind of changed his thinking, and kind of turned his back on the church, and now totally lives a completely opposite life from a pastor's life. And for me, knowing him as a pastor and as what he is now, he's the same person. He just has different a different mindset. He's still the same fun-loving guy I've always known. So it's just interesting, and it just added into my own story of going to church every day, to now it's like, okay, well, I can still be a good person and not go to church. So, not saying it's an excuse, but it was very eye-opening with the whole "I'm better than you" card, and it was very eye-opening seeing that whole situation play out with my now sister-in-law. And it was very, very heavy and very hard, because it made me rethink everything, because I was like, well, if you're always told God is love, why aren't these people loving her, even though what she's doing is biblically
the light bulb
wrong?
Just clicked for me. It took a while, but the light bulb clicked.
And it's interesting.
I think a lot of the Facebook comments that I read, Kyle, have similar themes.
Go ahead. I was about to turn it over to you anyway.
So go
ahead.
We could be here for days.
We could.
But yeah, we have to make sure that we keep in mind that human beings are fallible. We're going to mess up. There is only one perfect being ever, and it was Jesus. And as long as we are here to do his work, we're going to mess up. We're going to hurt people. But I do see that as a common theme. I do want to also mention a thought that I had, Kyle and fellas, that, the Bible speaks of in the last days, which I believe we are in. Okay, there will be a great falling away. Like, people will just kind of turn from Christianity as a whole. It's a sign of the times. That's a whole nother show that we could do.
Yeah.
But I am thankful that you let me come on today. For those you don't know, Kyle is my nephew. Used to take him to the park when he was little, and he'd be leading the whole playground. Like,
I was little. Once upon a time.
One time, not for long. But he would have the whole playground running after him, and just everybody loved him. And I would say to him, you're supposed to be a leader. You're supposed to do great things, and I still believe that. And I love everything that you do, all of your podcasts, your shows, I support and watch. So when you mentioned that this was a topic, I am by no means someone who loves to preach at anyone. I think you would agree with that.
No, yeah.
But this is an interesting topic to me. I love Jesus and I love you, and I'm thankful that you let me be on the show. I haven't necessarily experienced church hurt, but in getting ready for the show, I've learned about some things that people close to me have gone through, and it's really just gutted me. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation and can talk about it.
Are you currently frequenting a church right now?
I am, yes, I am. And I haven't really experienced, and like I said, the kind of things that some of your listeners have said that they have. But it's been hard to find where I feel like I belong, fellas. I don't know if you have noticed this too, but in trying to find a new church, I moved 35 minutes away from where I was going to church for a while. And even when I was at that church, I was feeling a little like, don't know if this is the right place for me, because I don't go to church exclusively for that community. I go because I love Jesus, and I always have. I go to worship. I go to get the word. But that community is very important. And going to a church that's so large and has so many services that people don't know you, because
right.
They might be at 8 o'clock service this week. Next week they're at 11. You just don't get to know people. I just kind of felt alone, and living in a home where my husband is not a Christian. He's agnostic. It's a lonely place to walk. So I need to belong to a place where I feel that community. And so I've tried several churches in the area, and there were many that I took my sister with me. People would not even come and speak to us. Now, they may have not known that we were new there. Maybe, maybe they just come once every 6 weeks and they didn't even know we were
there
visitors.
are people there that do.
That's so wild though, because it's your floor right now. That's so often in the church though, that someone will come in looking less than the rest of the organization, if you will, because at that point, no, I say you look more than the rest. Come on now, lady.
Okay, don't make me cry.
Miss Tina, compared to us right now, my goodness. But no, there's people that come in looking like, they might have some issues going on in their life or whatever, and they get, the back row treatment or whatever. I've heard about a preacher one time who went to a church he was going to be preaching at, sat in the back, or actually no, came in and sat on the front row. Someone comes into him and they're like, hey, that's actually my pew, and you can't sit there because I donated X amount of money to get there. He goes to the next pew. Same things happens to him. He has to go all the way to, one of the back 4 rows, we'll say. Next thing you know, the preacher of the church calls up this guy who's the guest preacher of the night. And then so he goes off on a message of, like, this is why it's treat others as you want to be treated. Because that's all it comes down to, is we're human beings. In fact, we're pieces of crap. Like, to put it lightly, we are all garbage.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I do want to comment on as well real quick. Like, churches that have ranking systems within themselves, like it's college football. Like, this guy's been here for 40 years, so that's his pew. He's in the top 4 right now. You don't get to sit in that pew because Brother Larry has been here for 40 years. I don't care.
It's ridiculous.
Like,
you still get left out anyway.
And let me say to Brother Larry, just because you wrote a fat check to sit where you sit, or what have you, or to have your name on whatever church building, does not make you a Christian and does not guarantee you a spot in heaven. I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you, Brother Larry.
Because that's where I was going.
Broken brother.
Wow.
Retweet.
Because there's no ranking systems in the eyes of the Lord.
Yeah.
Your church ranking, your little like system where this guy, no, you don't want to mess with him. He's up at the top. No, he's not. He's not up at the top.
Sorry to bring humor to this, but if we were to have a top ranking system of churches in general, how many would we have to have? Because there's got to be over under what, like 2.5 million churches in the United States. Yeah. So like, what do we break that down to? The top 100,000?
the church football playoff. Take your top 10 players.
Yes.
Starts now. You get a champion in 20 years.
Okay,
the champion's already been.
Caitlin's comment, she says, church can also be held anywhere. You don't necessarily have to go to a building on Sundays and Wednesdays that has church written on it. A group of people gathering and worshiping anywhere, any day, anytime is also considered church. And Caitlin, I agree with you on that point. Jesus did tell us where 2 or 3 or more are gathered together in his name, there he is among us. But for me, and I have had those times when a Sunday and a Wednesday I was by myself and I had my own worship. But there's just something about that corporate worship that I cannot do without. And I just think in this day and time, it's hard for a Christian, somebody who loves the Lord, to be separated completely from the church. So I'm hoping to learn today, and I hope offer some encouragement.
Not to bring a comic book reference into this, but and in Thor Ragnarok, Thor says something to Loki that Heimdall said to him earlier in the episode, and it applies to church, right? Is he said Asgard isn't a place, Asgard is a people, or Asgard is a people. Yeah. So like wherever we take our people, that's Asgard, right? And this was obviously with the Ragnarok event that their planet blew up, they lost their planet, so they had to find homestead somewhere else. But that applies to the church as well. Like I think what we are doing right now is a watered down version of church. Now, obviously, it's not necessarily fellowship, but it is sharing stories and making each other understand. And so everybody at this table is a believer in some sort, in some way, right? And that, so us sharing these stories, us making each other understand where we are in our walk with God, to me is that's church. No, Jordan Gibbs with the not brother Larry comment.
No churches.
I thought you were. That's why
I will say
thought there was a real brother Larry.
No. That
I was like,
name
brother, you just got told.
That name just came to mind, and I do have to say, like
Larry the Cucumber.
We had Larry Granger in the church that we grew up in. Yes. One of the best people that you could ever meet. Yes. So that brother Larry, not you, brother, not you, not you. Are you good if I take over here for just a minute to kind of? So I don't go to church right now. Just like you said, David, honestly, there's a lot of that does have to do with convenience sake. Saturdays, with the way our work schedules work out with my job and Rachel's job, Saturdays are the only day where I get the full day with Rachel and the boys. And so we like to spend that day together doing stuff, just spending family time together, because there's always something going on those Saturdays. We have to kind of leak that over into Sunday a lot of the time, or we have to do our home chores on Sunday a lot of the time. So that's part of the reason I don't go for me, because I work on Sunday nights. I would be sacrificing 3 hours of the time that I would get. And now I could take my family to the church.
Sacrifice for a sacrifice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's a little bit of the reason I go. Plus, growing up in a church that didn't care about football, and this is the bad part. This is not a very godlike view on it, but like, brother, we don't need the Spirit to fall at 11:45. Dolphins kick off in 15 minutes.
We need to have tickers at church on Sunday. You know what I mean? Like, turn their churches like bars without alcohol, baby. The attendance will skyrocket.
That's actually not a bad idea, though.
It's not, and we're gonna start that right here.
Everybody piling here. So I grew up in a church. I'm not gonna say the name of that church because I think we may be
denomination and location.
Pentecostal here.
All right, location
here in Bay County.
All right, and like Callaway, Lynn Hay. I'm joking.
A street address. No, they grew up in a church, and obviously I don't want to bash it too much, because I've been told that this church has changed a lot. I believe you have kind of started sticking your toes back in the water over there a little bit. My mom and my stepdad have as well, and your opinions and your feelings mean a lot to me in the current state that the church is in. I believe you. I trust you that it's changed. I'll never step foot back into that church. For us, we were never part of the circle. And when I say us, I say the people that, for lack of a better term, got dragged into that church every week. And that's myself, my sister Shelby, my cousins Leah, Monica, Gabby. And I think I can speak lightly, at least somewhat speak for them in this context. We were never ever made to feel like we belonged in that church. Nobody. It was my mom was a paying member of this church, so we would have Monday night, it was choir practice. Tuesday night, Monday nights was ladies' meetings. Tuesday night was choir practice. Wednesday night was service. I forgot what Thursday was, but it was Friday night was youth, and then Sunday was church. So you're talking 5 to 6 days a week that we were in that church, or my mom was, or
they should have been paying you.
Essentially. But I spent a lot of my childhood within the confines of this specific church, and nobody ever really tried to take me under their wing. Nobody really ever tried to reach out. Very hard time in my life, by the way. I do want to go back and mention that. Never had any church experience until my parents divorced each other. And then once my mom went off and, started, she had her own place and she wanted to get her relationship right with the Lord again, she started going to this church more frequently. I think we went with you every now and again, but once my mom moved off right there off of Hurd Avenue. She started going pretty much every Sunday. So we would go, what is going on out there? I mean,
The boys.
let's hope not. Probably my son.
Take a guess. Which one?
Oh, well, I know which one that is with the clacking. Oh, my gosh, ADHD. Where was I?
Mom.
On hurt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's a very, very hard period of my life. Really could have used somebody reaching out to me. But because this church was essentially one of those churches that had this ranking system, and it did. They had a
Like a legitimate, like.
No, well,
Okay.
no, but they did, man. You had the top group, you had the intermediate group, right? You had the top group were the ones that sat in the first 3 rows. They're the ones that got called up onto the stage to preach once a month or once every 2 months. They're the ones that were paying, like ushering at the doors, all this good stuff.
You paying good money if you get to preach.
Yeah, man. Yeah. You're deep in the pockets. And then you had your people that sat in the middle aisles, and then you had your low blows, right? Your Joes, and that was us. We were sitting in the back, always, just almost always one of the back 10 pews. And this church was huge. So that was something for me. A very hard point in my life. Nobody in that church tried to take me under their wing. Another thing with that church, and this is the one that gets me the most because I don't hold grudges in my life. However, when it comes to your mama, right, and you guys as boys, you're like, obviously you're probably closer with your dad than you are your mom. And that's probably 90% of men. I am closer with my dad than I am my mom. My dad can defend himself. Don't hurt my mama, right? And I think that's for most men. Oh boy.
Final comment right underneath the blue.
Larry reached out to you. Well, not really. Okay.
So there is a Larry.
Yeah, there is a. No, that's what we were saying. We did have a Larry. No, he was a great guy, but no, like I'm talking. When I say reached out to me, I'm talking like, man, come pick me up, take me fishing, like that kind of reach out. Like get with me, because I was only in that church once every 2 weeks because we had split custody, split weekends. So your 26 Sundays a year wasn't enough for a 7-8-year-old boy going through that kind of thing. So he did in the church. Sometimes, like, and it was only maybe 20% of that time. So these are my feelings. Now, my mom and my stepdad were paying members of this church. All right. Their second marriage. And I don't know what was going on before they signed the wedding papers. I don't know what was going on. But this pastor refused, number one, to let them get married in the church. And number two, refused to be the one to wed them. And the reason that I've been told my whole life is because it was their second marriage and they consummated beforehand. And I will tell you, and I'm going to try not to do this, but I want everybody out there to know that's the biggest bullshit that I've ever been told in my life. And I'm trying not to cuss on this episode, but that right there has to be said because that's unnecessary. That's ridiculous. And I promise you, if you're listening to this, if this finds you, you know who you are, the pastor, the main dude in that church, you know who you are. I promise you that God is going to hold you, my God, the God that I believe in, the God that loves people, the God that wants people to love people is going to hold you a lot more accountable than he's going to hold some gay dude. Then he's going to hold some dude that broke into a car one time. Then he's going to hold some dude who smoked a cigarette out in the parking lot before church or went to a movie theater. He's going to hold you way more accountable for the way that you treated people. So keep that in mind. Now, had the gap in between, because the one thing about this church that I did love was there was incredible activity in this church. It was a Pentecostal church. The energy was high. So what's that do? In a sense, this church ruined church for me beyond the negatives. This church ruined church for me in a positive sense, right? This church ruined because now, like, I crave this energy. I crave this energy. And now I'm not getting that. I'm not getting that anywhere. I'm going to these churches. I'm like, dude, I'm bored.
Yeah.
So for a long time in my life, I know we got some comments blowing up there, but my ADHD is not going to let me read them in the middle of my spiel. So for a long time, didn't find a church. And I want to talk about the second church that I went to that I finally bought back into was out west over in Gulf County. My cousin Dennis, shout out to him. Love him. God, man. He's
Barfield.
Dennis Barfield.
Yeah, he came on the show and did the top 25 rankings.
Man, I wish
Shout
he would
out
do
Dennis.
that again. I wish he would do that again because his what do you call them, the DDB rankings or whatever?
Yes, those were awesome.
Dennis's database or something like that. He had this whole computer system when the college football playoff thing started, and dude, he had it laid out with data, with schedule strength, everything. He's like, I don't know. I wish that he would go back to doing that, and I understand time probably doesn't allow it, but it was awesome. But shout out to him. He was I would say the assistant pastor at this church, and he pulled me, my father, and my little brother out there. We took Rachel a couple times. This was back in, oh, goodness, before the hurricane, before Carson was born. So let's say 2016, 2017. Loved this church. The congregation was maybe about 30 people. Yeah, I mean, it was Gulf County, very small church. Had a lot of energy. There was a lot of fellowship after the church. We would go, we would sit down, we would eat lunch all together in the fellowship hall next door, and you knew everybody knew you, and we were never made to feel unwelcome. We were always being asked about, like, we were talking sports, we were talking everything, and I loved this church for a long time. Then one day we had a beach day, and we were out at the water and we were throwing the football around, and the pastor dropped the GD, and I don't remember the context, and I don't remember why, but the pastor dropped the GD. And, I just sat here for a little while bashing the whole ranking system. And I do want to say that I'm not perfect, right? Like, I believe that people should be people, but it was just like that one person in the church that you don't want to hear say that specific term, right? Like, you don't want to hear anybody say it at the end of the day, but the one person in that church that should never even think about that
I feel you. Just like we're still all human beings, as Tina said earlier.
Right, but that was my feeling though. So that kind of started tensioning up my relationship a little bit. And then one of the big members of the church had passed away. One of the guys that we loved. His name was Chad Mullis. I love that man to death, and God rest his soul. He had a heart attack out of nowhere one day and passed away. And I drove up to North Carolina for Scott's wedding, drove back. I know this is long-winded. We're going to get there. I'm sorry.
It's your show, brother. Leave it at the table. Come on now.
This is usually my spot to be the long-winded one.
Yeah, but his isn't like going off on these. All right, ADHD. Keep going, Kyle.
Oh, boy, we got somebody in there that went to that church, and I don't know what your relationship is with that person to this day, and I have no hard feelings towards that man, but I drove back down from Scott's wedding in North Carolina, and I left at 4 a.m. from that wedding to drive all the way down into Gulf County, from Goldsboro, North Carolina to Gulf County, so I could make it to that man's funeral, because it was the day after the wedding. And, at the time, Rachel and I Rachel was very pregnant. And she was about 8 months pregnant with Carson. And I asked him to sign our wedding certificate. After the funeral, we did the whole fellowship thing. I asked him, hey, will you sign our wedding certificate? I would like you to be the name on our wedding certificate. And he said yes. And he signed our wedding certificate. So we always have that memory of him to this day. As the wedding started to draw a little near, we got married in May. I wanted my cousin Dennis to be the one to do our vows. He signed our marriage license. He married us. I wanted my cousin Dennis, who now has his own church. I wish I knew the name of the church. But he has his own church. I wanted him to be the one to do it.
Was he going to do top 25 reasons why y'all? No, I'm just kidding.
So that really upset that guy, and then he blocked me from all social media and everything. And then I come back later and I start hearing about. I moved back after the hurricane. Okay, good. Okay, so I can go full detail here. So a little while down the road, I find out that this guy was stealing food. Like, the food that we were eating was stolen from a school that this man worked for. He was taking food from the school, and for me, dude, that was my breaking point. So, like, he never did anything directly besides blocking me after I asked somebody else to marry us. I was like, that's so drama. That's so unnecessary, man. And so now those two stories, I've seen it at the top level with the big church, right? And I've seen it at the bottom level with, like, one of the smallest churches imaginable. And those reasons right there are the reasons that I don't go to church. Now, I have two young boys, and it's just like school, right? you can teach your kids at home all this stuff. You can homeschool your kid.
I was homeschooled. Shout out homeschoolers.
But and this is going to be proof, right? It's better for them to go to public school. But no, but I was gonna, it is better in a lot of ways. You don't want to be the one to
disagree with that though. Why? What makes you say that public school is a better sentiment though than
to interact with people?
Look at what I do on a daily basis, and you're going to say that.
Well, you went to Bay High, though.
No, I did not.
I thought you went to Bay.
I went to Covenant Christian. I had 12 people in my graduating class. But 2 of them were my family members. I went to Panama City Christian when I first started here in 10th grade. Then I went to Eagles Nest Christian. So at the end of the day, no, what matters is like who it is that's teaching you when you're homeschooled. Like if your parents are using homeschool as an excuse to keep you out of school, then there's that. But for you to sit there and say it's better for people to go to public school than homeschool, that's absolutely ridiculous. When here in America right now, more people are actually going to homeschool because of the fact what you're getting taught when you're taught at the house. Rant's over.
You didn't even let me really
retweet.
You kind of sometimes want your kid to learn from somebody else to be able to get, and that's where I was going with that. You want your kid to learn, but hey, fire me the fuck up. I'm with it. Fire me up, light me up. And that's the same way with church. Like I can teach my kids about Jesus, I can teach my kids about God, but unless they are in a setting where somebody else can teach them and they can interact with other kids that are trying to also learn that and walk that, I think that's very important. So I do want my kids to go to church. I don't know if I will ever go back, and that's where I am as of July 3rd, 2024. I know we were getting absolutely blown out in comments over here. Okay, we're not going to go into that one right now. Dan, go ahead. Kyle, Shelby, same. Josh Tucker.
If we're being honest on this show, that's the one I wanted to read the most. But
which one?
The one you wanted to skip over.
Dude, because that's just family drama at this point. That's
fair
just,
enough.
Because that's
fair enough.
That's my understanding of the situation.
Right, but sometimes, see, this is actually imperative to a conversation like this, is that our understanding compared to the facts mean absolutely jack, because it's a perspective, right? And people say perspective is what is the perspective is reality. That's not true. There's reality, then there's your perspective. Just because you hold that perspective in your mind doesn't make it right. At all. Same way with look, other people teaching people. Look, I wish I begged my mom for so long and finally got my wish in 10th grade that I actually got to go to school. Never missed a day of high school because I was so excited to go to school. I wanted that my whole life from 6th grade, bro. From 6th grade, wanted that. But still, at the end of the day, we hold these perspectives to be so dear to us. We live in this freaking country of America where we're off the rails with our perspectives. We go to another country. I was blessed enough to go on a mission trip to Russia when I was 16 years old. That changed my whole perspective on life. I've been in places where a lot of people probably wouldn't think I've been. That's changed my perspective on life. Like, I know that my perspective means zero jack crap. That's why you don't see me on the radio talking like Colin Cowherd or these other guys that know everything. Why? Because I know nothing. And I just try to relate to people, love people, and be the best I can to people. And that's the only thing, really. You know what I mean? Our perspective
Can
is...
I jump in here, Kyle?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No.
I'm being blown up over here.
I bet you are. I have to say this. I'm glad that you shared your heart with us. And in getting ready for today, I did some research, and this came from a pastor, Caleb Mathis. He did a whole blog on church hurt. And he put, and I broke down some of the points, he said church hurt is a misnomer. It's James hurt or Susan hurt or Rich hurt, right? The people of the church that hurt you are a very small percentage of this greater body of believers. And then he went on to say, you wouldn't junk your entire car for a flat tire, right? You would fix it, or you would get some help fixing it, and then you get back on the road. You cannot let some experiences with just a few people, in my opinion, completely derail your spiritual journey, because at the end of the day, it is all that matters is your relationship with Jesus Christ, and letting people push you to the point where you say, I am never going back again. I don't want anything else to do with it, I think is harmful for you.
The people
I get it.
Those people are, like, as we said earlier, those people are the church.
They are part of the church.
Right,
They are not the whole church.
But if you're not, if you have these experiences where you don't feel welcome in the church or wanted in the church at one church, and then you go to one and you find out you see the dirty side of the church. If it's happening that prevalently in such a small church, I guarantee you it happens in 7 out of 10 churches.
But I jump in with the argument of, just because we see some police brutality on TV doesn't mean all the police are bad. Just because we see some rogue teachers doesn't mean all educators are bad. We can't focus in on a small group of knuckleheads and paint the whole with that broad brush. The whole baby in the bathwater thing. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You've got to, in a good.
Oh boy!
In preparing for this show, I've read and heard some seriously gut-wrenching stories of what some people have gone through under ministries, and I don't pretend to know how people should get through that, but I know they have to get through it, because ultimately those people have to answer to God, either now, either definitely when they die, and you cannot let a human being who is fallible, who is flawed, keep you from a relationship with the Creator. That's just me. That is me. I wrote down some notes. It says you need to allow yourself to feel the hurt and deal with it, right? I wrote that the enemy will always try to work in situations to hurt and isolate us. So he wants to get you completely isolated off from the body of believers.
I love that too, right? Because biblically, Satan is referred to as the author of confusion. Yes. And then one of the things that you just referenced, sometimes you have to allow yourself to feel the hurt and then move past it. All right, I was engaged for 3 years. We were together for 7 years. I'm probably 8 months into the breakup of that. The only way that I was able to get to the point where I'm at today, I mean, for the first 6 daggone months, it felt impossible, to be quite frank with you. The only way that I was able is to each day, like, this is reality, bro. This is reality. Whatever it is, whatever it may be, like, this is what it is. And the more times that I would, like, oh, no, you know, like, I could do this or I could do that or what. No, you just, you have to soak sometimes in the negative. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't been in the best mindset for the last 2 days. It doesn't matter, though. Like, you know what I mean? I did not want to come do this tonight. I don't think I'm in a position to sit here and tell other people in this world, outside of the fact that Jesus Christ came here to die for your sins. I will never get away from that. Outside of that, who am I? Who am I? I ain't nobody, you know what I mean? But Kyle's my buddy. Exactly. We talked about it. At the end of the day, though, like what you said, you do have to, like, experience the hurt.
You do. You got to experience the hurt. You have to forgive. And I wrote this down today. We have to forgive. Jesus has shown us nothing but love. He showed his anger at those in the temple who did more damage than good. We have to remember that. We have to forgive. The Greek word for forgiveness is aphemi, A-P-H-E-M-I, and it literally means letting go / leaving behind. Okay, so it's not saying, it's okay what you did to me, but it is saying I'm going to let it go and I'm going to move past it for my own good. Okay, you cannot let the hurt define you. God is, he's not just a loving father, he is a righteous judge, and those people are going to answer for what they've done. Putting aphemi into practice is the bottom line for the teachings of Jesus. There's been many times, you know what I told you earlier before we came on air, I haven't had church hurt per se. I've had people hurt my feelings, okay, because I think that's just humanity. And I could count on one hand how many times I felt like God has definitely spoken to me directly. And he spoke to me directly one time when I was getting in a little pity party, and he said, "You coming for them or you coming for me?" And I was like, okay, well, Lord, I'm coming for you. And I let some things go. But forgiving is hard. And I know that in my own personal life, not necessarily in the church, but, you know, when you live long enough, people are going to hurt you. People that you love are going to hurt you. And you have to make a decision. Am I going to hold on to this bitterness and unforgiveness? Or am I going to let it go? Am I going to let it go and move on down the path where God needs for me to go? Because ultimately, he's got a plan. And everything that he allows happen. You know, the word says, everything works together for good for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose.
Romans 8:28.
Thank you.
Preach it.
So I'm not saying that God orchestrated that kind of treatment, if that makes any sense. But everything that happens in the life of someone who loves Jesus, he uses that for our good if we will let him. Okay, so that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting some hate mail.
Not hate
from
mail.
some of our guests. Not. Of course, they're not in the comments. They're on my phone. When
Better be fired up towards me, brother.
No.
That's a whole that's a paragraph. What they want to
So
say.
I do want to read some of the messages that I've been sent, unless anybody has anything to add before we move on.
Johnny Fitzgerald says everybody is somebody. I mean, that's true. I'm not trying to take away from that, and I don't like belittle myself. It's just in the grand scheme of things, we're one people out of, let's say, 3,600 years of humanity. And so, like, compare in the grand scheme, in the macro, what's it really matter if we are somebody?
Fair.
Shelby, this is fixing to be a 3-hour episode.
No, I mean, and I don't know what the end goal was, right? What was the end goal today, right? It was basically to speak
to
our
talk
minds
about
and
it.
just to talk about it, because these conversations are hard to have.
They are.
And obviously they're going to hurt feelings, and I'm going to have to deal with the repercussions of hurting those feelings. And I got to get my mind back on the right track.
And if I would not do something like this with everyone being on the same page.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
yeah, and it's
the fact that we have different perspectives of it. It makes it to where it's like, all right, and what we need is someone like, a real agnostic or atheist, and then get, like some, but then you never come to a conclusion at all. And we're not going to come to a conclusion.
No, but the conclusion is an understanding. And basically, whether you
I love
agree with
that.
the understanding or not, the conclusion is for you to know for us to know how each other feels, for people to know how I feel, and for people to know how these people feel. And for those people that are watching out there who are in a great church, who do have a home in a great church, to start reaching out to people, because I
Yes.
promise you that people want to go to church, but there's a horror story. There's a horror story somewhere in their past for why they don't. And for me, like I say, I'll never go back, but that's a bold-faced lie, right? If I found the right one, if I went with other people, I would 100% go back. I would give it a shot. But it's these reasons are why I don't, and these reasons are why I truthfully do not want to. And that's where I'm trying to make people understand. If you don't agree with my opinions, that's okay. They're not yours. They're not yours. They're not your feelings. They're mine. So I'm sorry if I hurt yours while expressing mine, is all I'm going to leave that as. So with that being said, we made the posts over the last... Well, actually, this really started when we made one a couple months ago. Yeah. And then got some really concerning things. And then once we knew we wanted to do that on one of the first couple episodes of this of this show, rather, once the wheels got off the ground. And then so we made the post again, and we got a lot more. So some of these are hard for me to even read, but these were shared with me because they want them to be read. They want them to be a light to be put on them. And so there are some names that don't mind me reading their name, and there's some names that I cropped out for obvious reasons, and also going to make sure that I don't mention I blacked out any church names as well. So this one came from my dad. He has a very specific story that I really wanted him to feel comfortable sharing with me.
Before you start, you got to read that one from Aaron.
The last one.
Who is that?
I don't know, but he's in the chat. The last life-changing experience I had with a good Christian, and we got to throw up
That's
the
in
air quotes,
quotations, right?
woman, was when my ex-wife stabbed me. And
Who's
My.
holy
I don't know,
hell,
but-
Aaron?
Aaron, shout out, bro. How much? No.
My God.
That is that's tough. And again, I'm never going to be the person who says, "Oh, trust Christians or church or any of that stuff." No, it's about one and one only person, Jesus. But
Aaron,
I feel for you.
sorry. We're sorry.
Yeah.
We didn't mean to laugh. I thought
No.
somebody was being silly.
No, I kind of did too. And then the next message shines a little more light on that.
yeah.
And then I was shunned by my church after I went to them for help. See, and that's a big issue too.
Yeah, no doubt.
And there
Because
are
if you're
some-
not the more popular one,
right,
you're yeah,
exactly.
No,
There-
you did it wrong.
back
Like,
to that ranking system,
Exactly.
right? Back to that whole thing. All right,
straight up.
So I'm gonna read this one from my dad. I used to attend back in the mid 80s. Work friend of mine invited me to come one Sunday, and I figured since my nephew was the cameraman there, it may be a great church home for me. I was single at the time. After about a month or so of heavy praise and worship sessions, fellowship meals after church, it was all falling into place for me. I was even a front row participant, which is odd for me because of attending alone. Then one day I was suddenly stunned when my friend and another man presented me a suit to wear for next Sunday's service. They proceeded to tell me that they prefer their men in the congregation to all wear suits because it's a more fitting attire for the television broadcast. I was always a nice jeans and dress shirt type of guy, and I felt uncomfortable in anything else. And my dad is still that to this day, by the way. It's jeans and a dress shirt. That's the way he is, and that's why I'm that way.
Shout out to him, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I left the church soon after, and it's probably a good thing because the married pastor was accused by some of the women congregants of inappropriate sexual behavior soon after I left. Great music, great setting, but very poor leaders. So there's the first. And if you guys have anything like you just did, basically chime in the middle of this.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah. So this is an anonymous one. This one was sent privately to me through Messenger. So a story for you, and I have to try to make heads or tails of some of the things here. So a story for you, a church reason why we quit going to ours. We were in the process of transitioning to a new pastor. The process is supposed to go through your deacon and the board members and stuff like that. The head deacon of our church happened to be in my family, and he believed on the power of prayer and kept telling the other deacons and the board members, we need to pray about our new pastor. We should not choose the other members or deacons if they didn't like him, so they rushed finding a pastor, and it just didn't feel right. So my family decided to step away from the church because my family member decided to step away from the church because he felt insulted, and they turned their back on him and started treating me and my family differently. So ultimately we left. We knew it was the right choice because our church turned into a money-hungry church. If you didn't make good money, you weren't included. Even to this day, the youth pastor has never reached out to my children to come back to this day. Nobody's ever reached out for us to ever come back. Even when we see some of the people in public, they turn their eye and look away from us like we were in the wrong. That is one reason why we are looking for a new church home. And there you go. Back to the original point. Some of these people. There you go. Hey, I think he meant he was single when he started going to the church. It's perhaps what he meant there. But what do you got?
Well, I was just going to say, kind of going back to part of my church hurt or whatever is, so when I was going to, I won't re-mention the schools that I went to, but if you do go back and listen to, you can hear them in order. And there's a reason why it was in that order, because the head of the church, the pastor of that church, same one who kicked me out when I was 15 or 16 years old, and it had nothing to do with anything that I ever did, but because he wanted, essentially they were kicking out the poor people. Well, they used to have the McKay Scholarship at the school. That is for poorer folks to be able to go to those private schools. Well, he revoked that because he did not like a certain demographic that was going to the school, and thus Eagles Nest was born. I'll give that one because that's the positive of it, and that's the school that I ended up going to was Eagles Nest, which was a great experience. There was like 3 white kids in the whole in the whole high school, and we were good at sports, bro, and I made a lot of good friends. In fact, one of my best memories from that school, riding in the back of the truck on the way to a baseball game with my buddy Red, which I guess at that point in time he would not have considered me a buddy, because he said one day we're riding on the way back from a game. He said, "You know what, Hayes? I hated white people until I met you," and that was one of my best memories from that school.
I love that. What a great story.
Wow. Shout out Red if you're still kicking and stuff, my man.
Did get some context on who Aaron McCann is. That is Jeffrey over here, Rachel's nephew. That's his stepdad. So shout out to Aaron. Thanks for sharing that with us, Aaron. G-Man, Greg Calvert over there in the comments. What's up, dogs? We love you, G-Man.
Yeah, no doubt. Go Giants. I mean Colts.
Oh. All right, so moving on to the next one. This was another one that got sent to me anonymously. This one says, I don't attend church because I don't like that many churches are closed-minded. I listen to Skillet, which is a Christian rock band. Shout out to Skillet. Absolutely freaking love Skillet. Yeah. Incredible. I listen to Skillet, a Christian rock band, but that is non-secular music by Elder Standards, as well as being told that as an adult, I have to attend a specific Bible study when they do not know where my knowledge and understanding of the Bible is. So that's one that got sent to me. By the way, I love Skillet, and I've experienced that as well.
Recently, right? Or is it?
I
in the
actually
future?
I just went and saw.
Yeah,
Skillet.
that's what I was saying,
a couple weeks ago. I absolutely love Skillet. If you are a Christian in any way and you love rock music, go to a Skillet concert because it always ends up becoming like church. He's one of those guys that are not ashamed to talk about his faith on stage, and that's one of my favorite things about John Cooper. Not the Lightning coach, the lead singer of Skillet.
The Canadian coach for the time being.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Chasten Hahn sent me posted a comment today on the Facebook thread, and I had to not screenshot it, to copy and paste it, and then like shrink it down so that it would all fit into one message here. And this is why he goes to church. So it's good to get a little. I wanted to try to mix as many of those in as I could. He says, "I go because it is the only it is the pattern displayed in the NT established, which I assume New Testament."
Ah, yes. Okay. Great acronym there, brother.
I go because it is the pattern displayed in the New Testament, established by Jesus Christ himself, established for our good. 2/3 of the New Testament were letters written to local churches. Hebrews 10 chides those who neglect the assembly. A church is defined as a local assembly of believers in the true and the triune God, covenanted together for the purpose of godliness, under the preaching of the word and the right administration of the sacraments, baptism and the Lord's Supper, under the guidance of elders. That's the pattern we see in Scripture, and if you're a Christian, is the pattern you should conform to. It's God's plan A for the world, and there is no plan B. I hate seeing stories of people hurt by their church. It's heartbreaking that people wield the Bible as a beating stick instead of medicine for the soul. However, there are phenomenal gospel preaching churches who really do display the love of Christ and the gospel. Cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's God's baby. Chase, if you're watching, drop the name of your church. I would have absolutely loved to have been able to share the name of the church that he goes to.
Yeah, bro, and he's coming with the word, not just like opinion. You know, and that's
You're
another reason why today I was like, man, I really wanted to have like some stuff ready to go. Like essentially what he's saying, that forsake not the assembling of yourself. You know what I mean? Like Tina said earlier, where 2 or 3 gathered in the midst. Anyways, keep on going with the comments. I'm loving this.
No,
hey, shout out G-Man.
I am reading.
Yep.
Go ahead. Well, there is Greg Calvert. He's reading the Bible for the first time, and he's halfway through. Really wish I had read it sooner. I just wanted to throw a helpful resource out there for those of you who are trying to read. It can be hard. Don't you think so, David? It can be hard. So
no
I
doubt.
love this website, enduringword.com. There is a commentary on every book of the Bible. It breaks it down chapter by chapter, verse by verse, kind of gives you historical context, what was going on in the time. It's just good. It's rich. It helps you understand. Again, that's enduringword.com. Click commentary. Every book has got commentary, and some of them he's got videos that he's done as well. So those of you who are trying to learn more, I highly recommend it. It's helpful. Helped me a lot.
And that's enduringword.com.
Yes.
Okay.
.com.
All right. Don't even know why that. Not the right context to even go over that.
He's trying to get you fired up, boy.
I mean, next week, watch next week's episode. That one is a big one. We'll read Jenny's here in a second after I read this next one. Scott Hollinsworth. This is my best friend in the whole world.
Shout out, Scott.
Shout out to Scotty. He was nervous for us to do this episode tonight as well because he wanted to make sure that we did our due diligence on sharing good stories as well. And and I was already going to do that, but I obviously had to put Scott's in here for that reason. He said, I'll put this here to see if anybody agrees. I go to church now to fill in the gap relationship between me and God. I think what turns younger people away is the fact that people do not invite others anymore to church. I know that's why I stayed away from church for a long time. Nobody invited me, so I didn't feel welcome. Drama's another. It seeps through everywhere in the world, and church is no different. Sadly, people do not listen to the preachings of spreading gossip and how it can hurt churches and relationships with the churches. I also think that the lack of choice as a younger child makes a big difference. Most people I know who aren't in church now were forced as a kid to go because of family. Wow. I didn't even read. So I tried not to read all of these, because I wanted to kind of get raw reaction to these as we went on. So I'm now reading this for the first time. I would hope for everyone to go to church, but it is their choice at the end of the day, that can negatively affect their relationship if they don't have much of a say. To me, you should feel the way you want to go to church and not the obligation. I could go on and on, but that's just a little bit. Shout out to Scott, by the way. Was not always, his walk with Christ was not always great. Scott actually at one point, he has a Bible verse tattooed on his ribcage and has had it since I've known him, essentially a little bit after that. But he went through this atheist phase, and then we always ripped him like, look at the atheist jumping in the pool with a Bible verse on his ribs. So.
Hey, you ribbed him.
Yeah. We got another long. I got another long. A lot more comments to read. Tina, do you want to hit on Jenny's there?
Jenny said, I left church when it was all doom and gloom unless they were broadcasting live, and then it was all shiny, happy people. Then a couple years later, was forced into baptism in order to keep my living situation calm, and the church leaders knew that.
There's a good Casting Crowns song about that kind of stuff, I believe. I think it's called Masquerade. I'm not sure if that's the title of it or not, but that happens all the time. One of the analogies I would like to use with the whole church hurt thing is, how many times have you had a star athlete leave your team? Do you still keep up with that guy? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Is like, we're still talking about human beings regardless of the case, but it is magnified because of the position that they're in. So I do understand it completely.
Any more up there we should hit on? Greg
Alexander
Calvert.
Jenkins is,
He's just apologizing for the basket. No, you're good, man. Hey, next week is all sports. Next week is a big sports episode. So I promise you that this show is, one more time, Drew, what's this show about?
Anything and everything.
Yep. Sports, pop culture, perspective, anything that we can think of. And this is a perspective episode. Last week was pop culture, right?
I can't help you guys out on sports.
No, David knows nothing. And shout out to G-Man Greg Calvert. I'm on an app called Bible Recap by Tara Lee Coble, where you read assigned verses every day and then she recaps. I love that. I'm going to write the name of that down. So this one's a two-parter and it's really long-winded. One of you mind taking over that for just a second? So just once you read the first part, just swipe to the left. And this is another why I go to church message. So.
Oh, okay. Can I say the name?
Yeah, no, this is a Facebook comment, so I assume you're okay with being publicized at that point.
Leslie said, oh man, I could completely consume your comment section with all the reasons why I go to church. I don't even know where to start. Growing up in church is why I never fell into the wrong crowd throughout my life. In college, when a lot of people struggle with saying no to sex, drugs, and alcohol, I never had to struggle because I never had the desire to get myself in trouble. In high school, my best friends were all church people. I never spent time with people in high school who ever offered me drugs, alcohol, or even cigarettes. My close friends just didn't do that stuff, mainly because we were all raised by strong Christian parents, and most of us were very active in church. When I moved away to college, I immediately found a church with a huge college group and met some lifelong friends. We had game nights and spent many hours per week having a ball without a drop of alcohol. We never got in trouble, and we worshiped God together. We prayed for each other. We kept each other on track. After college, I moved back home and went back to my home church. Now some of those people are still very close to me. We've been like family for 20 plus years. Every time I had to move away from home for my husband's military orders, we immediately started looking for a church. When I'm away...
The other way, I'm sorry.
When I'm away, they always take us under their wings and become our family away from family. Our churches helped us stay active with music. Because of our churches, we were able to connect with people who have the same beliefs as us, people who would pray for us, who would guide us when we needed it, people who would tell us what we needed to hear, even if it's not what we wanted to hear. And I want to pause for a minute to say, sometimes people don't want to hear the gospel. Do you agree with this, Dave? As a Christian, they don't want to hear it. We want to continue to
live. If it ain't hurting, it ain't working, baby.
Okay. You cannot continue to live and you cannot be unchanged. You cannot call yourself a Christian and be unchanged. And sometimes that's a message folks don't want to hear. She says, I need the church to be my family. And when I'm home, I have a strong desire to be that family for other people who need it because I know how it feels to be alone. None whatsoever. Oh, she says, I have no desire to leave the church, none whatsoever. I feel like people have unreasonable expectations when it comes to the Christian church. We aren't any more perfect than anyone else. Are there jerks within the church? Yes. Are all of us jerks? Absolutely not. Are we perfect? Nope. Do we struggle with sin just like anyone else? Yep. Do some people live separate lives at church and then different lives away from the church? Yes. Do all of us live like that? No. I love Jesus and I love people and I love having family who also love Jesus like I do. And that kind of goes along with what I was saying. I'm sad that people have had some of these experiences, but at the end of the day, you've got to find, in my opinion, the body of believers where you feel that you can be part of a family.
Pass this around a little bit and kind of take some turns, get some more voices in here.
I will also say being raised as a pastor's kid, all of the reasons that she mentioned why she was able to do all the good things were the exact reasons why I got away, like as a teenager and stuff. Because it's like, man, like my mom expected us to be the example for kids. And I was like, a
lot of pressure.
Exactly. So that was like one of the first things, not like I ever hated church at that moment, but when I got kicked out of a church, that and for doing nothing wrong, that was it. That, you know, that was the final straw until I came back. And now I'm in agreement with her. Like, yeah, go to church if you want to.
Absolutely.
Joe says, I still go to church and volunteer in parking lot as well. Jesus loved the sinner, I think what he means here is Jesus loved the sinner, not the sin. People find excuses in other people's behavior not to go to church. Everyone there is in stages of their walk with God. None are perfect. Instead of making excuses to go, I chose to take that journey with them, all imperfect sinners as well as me. Amen.
I love it. So you'll just swipe left, Drew.
It's like Tinder, brother.
And this is where I'm a great popcorn reader.
Welcome back to the show, Drew Corman. Had a comment there. Shelby, Drew, you there? He had to go into YouTube and hop in there. It's a lot of voices and it's a lot of good context. So
yeah, I just let other people speak.
Listening is fine.
While Drew's about getting ready to go, and this could take a while because he's gonna. No, I'm just kidding. But
he's reading somebody else's words.
David knows my kids were homeschooled in a Christian home. One now has her master's in divinity from BU, Boston University, and the other has no interest in religion now. And then there's me, someone who, like he said, he wished he picked up the word a little bit sooner.
Love that. Go ahead.
So this is from Deborah Laminack. She said, I go to church to worship the Lord and be with those my family. Connection is critical, and I find myself isolated by the enemy if I stay away too long.
Straight up.
Are church people perfect? No. Are there a lot of narcissists as pastors? Yes. Church hurt is the worst, and I have felt it in the depths of my soul, but God, He hasn't changed, and He can and will lead anyone who desires His presence to a place where that can be found. I am a member of Calvary, Panama City, and I have found this place to be a place of healing for the broken, restoration for the forgotten, and life-changing for the lost. The pastor isn't perfect, but he is real. The room is full of people who have failed in life and failed God over and over, but who have found that his mercies are new every morning and his grace is unending.
Hey, that is so true. Grace, not as big of a thing on this show. So if you would like your church name to be shouted out, send your Venmo over to Kyle Wright, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the power company doesn't take grace, unfortunately.
Yes, sir.
I do want to add, because we're getting a lot of these this is where it gets a little difficult. This is the one that you were talking about when you got here tonight. Before we get it any further, I do want to say a little bit, because a lot of these are attacking, they don't know they're attacking me, but they're attacking my thoughts and my ideologies on why I don't go to church. And I don't go into a church expecting the people to be perfect in the church. I just want to go to the church where the people aren't pretending to be perfect.
That makes sense.
And that's more what I'm looking for.
Exactly. And I get that 100%. From what I was saying earlier about the way the people treated my sister-in-law and treated my father-in-law for kind of how he handled everything with my sister-in-law, I definitely saw the other side of the church that beforehand, I was like the hierarchy of the church. I was up there. I was one of those people because my parents were so in tune with it, and I helped out with sound. I helped out with different things in the church. So I was always there, always helping. So I was in that hierarchy. So everybody reached out a hand to me to take me under their wing. And then whenever I saw everybody kind of flip whenever everybody still had my back, but they didn't have my sister-in-law's back. She wasn't my sister-in-law at the time. But
Reading a comment.
But she wasn't.
We'll get some context on that shortly, I'm sure. Go ahead.
She wasn't my sister-in-law at the time.
Oh,
but
the context.
It's just because I've been knowing this for like, you know what I mean? I've been knowing where you were going with this, and then I wasn't expecting you to say it like that.
No.
That's the only reason I'm laughing.
No, she was my
context.
girlfriend's sister, and so they the way everything just flipped from seeing the way that they treated her, it was just like, okay. Whenever we act the way that you want us to act,
You'll accept us.
You'll accept us. But as soon as we do something totally different, all of a sudden you just turn a blind eye and you're just like, no, I don't know you anymore. And that's just like Kyle said. You don't go to church expecting everyone to be perfect. You just expect people to be their true selves and look at you straight in the eye and say, hey, I know I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to be the best me I can be.
Right on. And again, like the only reason I laughed is because I texted you earlier about this, and then when he said it like that, my sister-in-law wasn't my sister-in-law at the time. That's why I laughed, not because of anything. Like, no doubt. We should all be accepting, regardless of in the church or out of the church. We should be accepting of others and how they act. You don't gotta love the sin, but you can love the sinner, and I got my fair share of sin out there. So
nice callback there.
Better apologizing now than later, right?
Right. Exactly.
And there was no apology. I don't feel like I should apologize there. I just the context of what I was laughing at is how it was almost like you read my text off.
Oh, I saw it earlier.
All right, so gonna go into the next one, which is kind of difficult to read. Because of the content in it. This was a Facebook comment. I'm not going to say her name. I know I said earlier, put it on comment. I'm sure, or she put it on Facebook, so it's public, but I'm not like, and this would, something like this, I'm not going to read the name. It's kind of where I'm going with that. I'm considered disabled. Well, my former support coordinator, who was a pastor at Cornerstone Baptist, formerly Woodlawn, excuse me. I'm sorry. I forgot to block out the church name on this one. My former support coordinator.
That'll be $1, church.
He took me up to Dothan to visit my fiance at the time, and it was late at night, and he started asking me if we had sex, and that he couldn't because of the medicine he takes, and he started rubbing on my arm and practically stopping the car. And when I got to my former fiance's house, he was like, "What the hell are you running from?" I waited for a couple days before I told my dad, and then the guy writes my dad a letter saying that I'm pretty much retarded and I don't know what I'm talking about and I was lying and all this stuff. He was fired from the church and his support coordinator job for other reasons as well. That's one of the tough ones to go through there. This is just because I wonder, again, how often that kind of thing happens, because Scott and I had a conversation about this through Messenger earlier. But, especially for young women, and this is something I can never relate to, I can never talk about, but, for young people, you go into a church and you're extremely vulnerable. And in a lot of ways, you're looking, like some of these kids are looking for leadership outside of their home. They're looking for somebody to look up to. And so they allow themselves to become vulnerable. And I wonder how, I don't think that this one happens as much as the comments that we've got today to read. Would make it seem like it does, but I bet it happens more often than people think.
I would say twice as much as we think, because people, when something like that happens to them, I don't want to use the word courage to stand up and no, because that's ridiculous. Like, that is a traumatic experience in your life. Like, and really, to be quite frank, not anyone else's business. If you know what I'm saying. So sometimes there's that. Like, mind your own daggum business. I got my own hurt to deal with. You know,
exactly,
that type deal. So yeah, sorry that happened. Shout out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go kind of speed round through a few of these. Rick Ty says, and shout out to Rick Ty. His wife sent me a lovely message as well. Yeah, she's so sweet, and I'm going to read hers as well. Rick Ty said, I go to church to praise and worship the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Lucinda and I are in the worship team at Rock Solid Church in Bayou George. Singing for Jesus gives me joy, and I found nowhere else. Please share this on your show tomorrow. Peace, brother. So,
and that'll be $1, Rick, for the church shout out.
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
We're keeping tally over here.
We're going to be billing these churches, and they're not going to be taxed. All right. Michael Neville, my cousin. You know Mike Neville.
I used to work with him. I don't think we worked at the same business, but I worked at Gracie Ray's, and I think he worked at Shrimp Boat.
Oh, nice. Okay,
yeah, roll
cool.
Tide, Mike.
Same building then. Yeah. Great dude, man. Michael Neville, cousin. We have been close for a very long time. Blank called the police on a homeless man in their parking lot. I watched a boss man sing with the Holy Spirit on Sunday, not in blank, but somewhere else. Then he would dog cuss his employees on Monday. I heard someone in a church tell my pregnant 13-year-old sister that her baby was forever damned because she wasn't married. The worst.
That's Old Testament, by the way.
Yep. The worst examples I can find as it pertains to Christ walk around in the South. Righteousness with no fruit. I do better talking with my girls about who Jesus was, not what the church is. The church is my girls and I talking about Jesus. It's not a suit, a country club that are damned opinions, a generation of greed preaching Jesus. Nah, just rather go and find the fellowship as he dictates.
I love that that sentiment in that statement there from Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. William Walker, shout out to
Gator Jamie.
I go to church because it keeps me grateful. If I miss church for too long, I can feel the difference in my attitude. Church is a weekly, sometimes more, reminder to stay humble and remember the sacrifice that was made for me.
Brother, being grateful. And this is as someone who, like I said, I was kind of in a little icky mindset, if you will, the last 2 days, like woe is me type bullcrap. To be quite frank with you, like there are some people in this life who maybe deserve to think like that for a little bit. But at the end of the day, we are breathing fresh air. We're in a country right here where we can make decisions. Despite what everyone tells you, you can do what you want. Now, there might be repercussions, might be consequences, but you can still do what you want. You be grateful and be humble. Oh my goodness, man. Things will change in your mindset for the most part. And like you said, whenever I texted you this earlier, Kyle, we're humans. We're going to have those days.
Yeah, we are. We are, again, my opinion is that we are allowed to have those days because, man, life is tough. It's unfair. Obviously, before I take a quick pause, I know we're running long. I'm sorry, guys. But I want to talk a little bit about like why my faith has wavered in the past several months, right? This is for me, like I don't go to church, right? But I in my opinion at least, I live my life for God, right? I pray. My kids pray, and I talk to God all the time. I usually used to be on my car rides to and from work. I would have mostly from work. I like to ride home in silence sometimes. Overstimulating job, and I like to kind of have my conversations then.
In headlights.
Where do you work again?
Angelina's.
We're charging restaurants now too. Angelina's, that's $1.
And that's double because you do get taxed.
Yeah.
And a lot of tax, food tax, state tax, like there's a lot. But back in December, Grandpa passed. We're doing this in his house, by the way. Thankful for everything that he left behind for us. Not something I have much experience with. First time ever that that anything's ever been left behind. So shout out to Ronnie Quattlebaum. I freaking miss you. But passed away in December. Left this truck to me in the will. Wanted me to have this truck more than anything in the world. And made that clear to you. Made that clear to everybody. I went through about 3 weeks of kind of denial, I think you could say. Like I knew I was going to take it, but I didn't want it in the same breath just because like I don't, that's a lot, man. That's a lot. Like there's a denial factor to that. And so on January 9th, I finally made the decision to go get the truck legalized. I got the insurance. I knew it was going to be expensive, but I went and got a nice Miami Dolphin, because it was a beautiful white GMC Sierra. Went and got a nice Miami Dolphins plate to put on it. It was beautiful, man. I went and got a Florida State tag on the front. I was excited, man. I finally had myself something Carson loved. We did Truck Tuesday. I would take Carson to work in the truck. Nice. And we did it once a week because we were living in Mariana and gas ain't cheap. Trucks are not good on gas. All right, let's get that clear. So I had the truck legal for 10 days. We came here. We were cleaning out this house, getting it ready to, we knew we were going to move in soon. We were here cleaning it out on my way home, and a drunk son of a bitch came into the other lane and hit me head on and took that truck from me. And took a lot more from me. And so that right there, that 3 to 4 week span, that 6 week span from the death to that going down, you know, my wife had a wreck in that time as well. Her car was totaled, and I'm just like, why, God? Like, why, man? Like, why us? Why this? Like, why does it keep happening? Why do you keep? In my words, you know, I like to keep this stuff private usually, but my opinion was like, why are you punching down on my family? And that's the way it feels sometimes. And that, anyway, recently here, in the last couple of weeks, that man that hit me, third DUI, got 2 years of probation, and his sentence docked down to reckless driving. And
I don't remember you saying that part.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that part until I read the rest of the.
No.
So
that's wild.
You know, this is right now, once again, that I always say that I choose to believe because of all these reasons. I think there's a ton of reasons to believe in God, but I won't ever shame somebody if they don't, because in my opinion, there are plenty of reasons not to, and stuff like this happening are the reasons not to. And that's why I don't shame people that don't. I will, and I do. I forever do, but I won't shame people that don't. Moving on. I know we got, oh my goodness, we've got some good comments to get through.
Aaron, I can we just go by Opie with Aaron just because of the Andy Griffith show back in the day?
I like Opie.
Aaron, if you mind that, then we won't do it, but just at least let me, man. Come on, please. You want me to read it?
Yeah, read it. Go for it.
All right. Opie, also known as Aaron, he says, I agree with the argument that forcing children to go to church without any say can cause problems, i.e. religious trauma. Further down the road, I'm actually fighting that battle with my ex. Her family is of the mindset that all children must, all 4 of those letters are capitalized, go to church. She enrolled our 6-year-old daughter in a private Christian school and kept her from me for 7 months this past year just because she wanted to have the right beginnings. And she just had her baptized this past Sunday without any discussion after I had expressed my concerns about forcing religion on her. It's also caused issues in the family because now this 6-year-old is telling family members they are going to hell and having mental breakdowns because now her daddy is going to hell because he doesn't want to worship the Christian God.
Such an unfair thing to put on a child. Bo Green, put your trust in the Lord and he will provide.
Shout out to Aaron for letting me call him Opie, my boy.
Opie's good. Bo Green says, put your trust in the Lord and he will provide. May not be when you want it or how you want it, but God will always take care of you. I have had to learn a lot of patience and just let God take control of everything.
Shout out, Bo, my boy.
And then Jenny McCann coming in. Drew, you want to take that one?
One of my friend's kids went to a church out on the beach. I can read it.
Oh, uh-oh.
I need my glasses.
That's what it is. You just can't read. You're an LSU fan.
Go Tigers. This kid went, oh, there it is. This kid went for several years and was close to multiple people in the church, the pastors, worship team, and congregation. Everything was pretty much fine as this child grew closer to God. However, in the last year, people in the church were throwing rumors around such as stalking, harassment, etc. Pastor would not take both sides of the story and pretty much look to the side, pretty much took the side of these people throwing very serious accusations and kicked the child out and has pretty much ruined this kid's look on religion. And when this child needed someone there for him, everyone in the church turned their back on this kid.
And why? Because they feel like their reputation will be ruined for, God forbid, helping another human being out.
That's so terrible. So dark, man.
Can you pull up Shelby's real quick?
Yeah, I just messaged her back. Hers
So
is
he
next.
can't
I
read all of that, but no, I'm just kidding.
I have these in a very specific order, basically, because we get to the ones at the end, and those are the ones that are a little harder to go through. And Shelby's I wanted to save for close to the end as well. This is from Lucinda Ty today. Shout out to Rick Ty and his wife. The beautiful people, man. I'd love to. I don't know if I've met them or not.
I have never met him in like actual person, but man,
love
he is a big Braves fan and he loves talking sports. So
well, those are some of the best things you could be. Except,
no doubt.
I mean, go Reds, but I got a Braves hat over there. Hello, Kyle. I'm Lucinda Ty, wife of Rick, and I loved your subject tonight. I also was a believer and didn't attend church. That changed in 2007 when Rick and I had a gig with Dave Lloyd, and he was starting a church and invited us to attend. We attended Crossbridge Church until it merged with Eastgate. God blessed us with free will. He will still love and protect us whether we attend church or not. What's important is that we live by his commandments and most importantly, love him and others. We've been blessed the past 8 years with a fantastic church, Rock Solid PC. So that's Rock Solid
$2
PC.
for Rock Solid.
Yep, I read it. Yeah.
Which I've got a cool story on that church as well.
Okay, good. And we both feel comfortable, loved, and welcome, finally. It's everyone's choice, and that's what is so great about our country, freedom of choice. Don't forget, tomorrow is the 4th of July. We are a free country. And I know I said this in that video, and thank you, Lucinda, for your beautiful message. She said, God bless you and have a safe 4th. It's so nice to be able to have these conversations and not worry about being literally murdered. Mm-hmm. And I want people to know that that's, beyond Christianity, we're blessed enough to be Christians in America where we're able to have conversations like this and not have our heads sawed off for it.
Kyle, before we go on, can I touch on the comment about forcing your kids to go to church?
Please, absolutely.
As a mom, raised 3 kids in the church, I kind of have a little bit of a different outlook on that. I know this is a whole nother topic that we could go hours on, but I was just looking up, I have this article on Gallup. On Gallup.com. In the United States, childhood church-going habits fade into adulthood. Okay, that's the bad news. But the even worse news is, so basically, the more people who went to church as children, even though they grow up and oftentimes leave the church, there's more of those people in the church now than there are people who never or seldom went. Mm-hmm. So I think that, a child cannot make up their own mind. I'm sorry, a 6-year-old can't.
These days they can, but they shouldn't be.
They shouldn't.
Yeah, dude, that's
my kids had to go. God. They had to go with me.
I'm thankful that I was forced to go.
I did what I felt I needed to do to teach my kids about Jesus. Now they've grown up and they've made their own choice. I never forced it on them. I wouldn't think. They did have to go with me, so they got middle school, high school age, and they had their own issues. And it got tiring to try to make them go. I didn't want to force anything down because a relationship with Jesus has to be on an individual's terms. You don't get to heaven because your mama was a Christian or your mama or your daddy. You get to heaven because you become one on your own. So, and a school teacher teaching in public school, teaching in private school, I see the effect on some children who never knew about Jesus, who never went to church. There's skyrocketing incidences of anxiety and depression among children, young children. Kids don't know that there is hope out there, and we have to teach them that. That's just my opinion on that.
Proverbs 22:6.
Train up a child. I believe they will on their own time.
I would say I'm living proof of that.
Yes, and you are encouraging to me, Dave. You really are. I was glad to see that. But yeah, a little kid doesn't get to tell me, as a parent, that they are or not going to do something. Now, when you get a teenager, we'll talk. But
no, I wonder if that goes beyond that conversation to now the kid has expressed interest in not wanting to go, and then some people, and this is not my experience. I never ever spoke up or said anything that I didn't want to go. So this is not directed towards my parents. I have to say that because she's still watching. Mom's still out there.
We love you, Frankie.
But I do know that this happens, right? Kids say, I don't want to go to that church anymore, mommy or daddy. And then they are still forced to go back. So I think that you tiptoe a fine line in that conversation because I just said I want to put my boys in church because I think it's
Right.
important for them to learn that from other people and be around other people who are also trying to learn that. But I also like if he's like, I don't want to go I don't want to go to school. You know the difference, right? You can, there's a difference, especially as a parent, you know that there's a difference in your kids and the way your kid does things. All right.
Real quick, though, I think that situation is a little bit different, being that it's a split household, though, right?
Yes, right.
So it does change things,
Yeah,
but
that's
there's
tough.
also, like, when she's with you, there's one thing. When she's with her, that's another thing. And the whole, telling people they'll go to hell, she's 6 years old. Like, I think I would like to bet $1 that she'll grow out of that phase eventually. And if not, then I wouldn't trust her.
Right.
I wouldn't trust her on that.
All right, so this is from Shelby. She was thankful enough to share this with us and wanted us to read it as her name because she wants your opinion on it here. My church trauma, being quizzed in church for graduation, and that's in quotations. It was called a pinning ceremony. Having classes in church is fine to learn and to have fun, but they would do a major test every year to see how much knowledge you've learned and remembered, which I think was totally unnecessary. Coming from someone who struggled in school as is, I had an extra stress and worry on top of regular school to try and fit in at church, to try and remember that all I needed to remember and pass this test so I can get pinned with my friends. When the time came to do the review board, I wasn't able to do it. It's humiliating, and you should never feel so embarrassed at church. To this day, I think about how terrible it made me feel. You go to church to hear the word of God, to worship and fellowship. You don't go to be tested. A church should never quiz your knowledge on Christ or the Bible. It can be very traumatizing, especially for a child.
Oh, Shelby. I remember all that now. I'd forgotten all about it, and I am so sorry. I became a teacher after that, and now looking at it with the lens of an educator, my heart breaks. It breaks that that's what happened, that's how that all went down. You should have been pinned right up there along with everybody else. I'm so sorry that happened. I would count that up as, I don't think people were trying to be hurtful. It was just ignorance on the part of, the people in charge. I don't think that they thought of people with learning issues, and I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Go ahead.
I am.
I was going to say ignorance or negligence.
Maybe a little both. But I think knowing those people at the time, because my daughter went through the whole program, I think it was just ignorance. They just didn't know. If you're not a trained educator, you can't imagine that, oh, well, everybody else is doing this, you should be able to too. No, that's not true. We all learn in different ways. And I'm sorry, Shelby. I am so sorry that happened. I am. And I believe that those people in the program, if they saw your comment, I believe their hearts would be broken too. And I think they would be convicted and they would ask you to forgive them. I really believe that. I don't think that was intentional hurt, but it is hurtful. That is hurtful. I'm hurt for you right now, reliving all that.
And no one can tell another person what hurts them or not, regardless. You know what I mean? So, and I'm a person, as a sports fan, I do not like or believe in participation trophies. However, in a church setting like that, like if you participate, you should be up there with everyone else. And then also, can we get a round of applause real quick here for a teacher? Because I would say one of the top 3 most important jobs in this country, far surpassing the president of the United States.
Yeah.
Not the president, but presidents in general.
And closer to school starting, we teased this a little earlier on. We're going to have you back on. Also, Brian Bassett, who is an educator as well. And I think we're going to do a little, I just want to get inside the mind of what it's like to educate the youth, especially in 2024 when there's some stuff to tiptoe around. So that's an episode coming up here in the next probably couple of weeks, because school starts back pretty early in August in this area. So
how much studying on young lingo do you have to do?
Talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking.
Oh, skibbity.
You talking to me?
Liz.
Oh my gosh, I heard that the other day. I was like, "What are you saying, bro?"
No.
I know what Riz means. Skibbity toilet.
Skibbity toilet. Oh, don't let your kid watch Skibbity Toilet. No, I teach middle schoolers. It's a YouTube guy who's literally he's AI his head in the toilet, and people flush stuff down his mouth, and they watch this. Yes, no, that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, no, I teach middle schoolers, and the boys are always trying to get me to say stuff, and I have to get my phone and text my son and go, son, What is Sigma Alpha?
That's
mean?
Sigma, bro.
So yeah, I know.
Oh, hell.
Coaching flag football has really brought that to the forefront of my attention, man. I love it, man.
All right. So moving on.
Hearing your baby's laugh down the hall.
Yeah,
That's
it's a great thing, isn't it? Not the reason I quit going to church, but I have a funny / embarrassing story for you. I was at youth church one Wednesday night, and the youth pastor had us read passages out loud for the rest of the group. I personally hate reading in front of people in fear of messing up or sounding stupid. Well, the fear came true. I can't remember the exact passage, but I was asked to read, but I remember the scripture has the word Gentile in it. As I'm As I'm reading this, my mind says it correctly. However, my mouth says genitals. Now the rest of the group either didn't notice or they were just being nice because no one reacted to it. As I finished reading the rest of the passage, the youth pastor told me, "Good job, but it's Gentile, not genitals." Needless to say, that was the last time I read anything out loud in front of the church.
Aww.
Now, that is a funny story, but there is a little darkness to that, right? Like you shunned and embarrassed this kid who's obviously a kid.
But did he do?
In the context,
did he do that
is important.
privately, or did he do that?
Yeah, if you're,
Because if you did that privately, that's correction.
Right.
I have no issue with that.
Right,
Like if he
that's true,
pulls you
right.
aside and is like, "Hey, look, it's Gentile, not genital." If he did that in front of everyone, that's where the issue is.
That context is important, Dave. Good. Thank you for adding that. That's 100% true. All right, so we got two more here. They get a little hard. These are two really difficult ones that I wanted to share to the end. We got any comments up there that you guys want to hit on?
Yes, the Braves won 3-1. Let's go Braves.
And the Cincinnati Reds just took their second out of the 3-game series from the New York Yankees.
Let's go,
And they're going for the
bro.
sweep tomorrow. So.
Oh, I'm going to hear about Ellie De La Cruz all week from AG now.
I don't think so. I think he got the golden sombrero tonight. So
Hey, but still fire, though. He's still fire.
But we got a stew bomb, Stuart Fairchild. Shout out to the Reds taking 2 of 3 from the Yankees, going for the sweep tomorrow.
Alvarez is amazing.
Dude, sweeping the Yankees on the 4th of July in New York would be something. It'd be the worst thing that ever happened in that city.
Also, I hate to say this, but shout out to those Astros, though.
Putting it back
Getting
together.
They're like them Kansas City Chiefs. Bad first half of the season, but hey, you might have had us in the first half.
You
Ain't
got
gonna lie.
You got an 80-game head start. Let's go.
Hunter Brown 4-0. Man, he's ridiculous this month. Anyway, sorry about that.
My wife commenting on there. Let somebody else read that one. 'Cause I want to be able to soak this in as somebody else reads it.
I'll read it. She says and I'm sorry to read like this. I really can read. It's just old lady eyeballs. It's
Well,
hard to
also
see
it
that.
is pretty
It
small
is tough.
font.
Same
Can we
for me.
expand that at all, Jeffrey?
Yeah.
Can it?
No.
Oh, man, what kind of IT degree do you
Okay.
have
I'll
over
just
there,
read
Jeff?
slow. Rachel says, I think a lot of my reluctance to go back has been of my own accord. I stopped going because life just got busy and it never stopped being busy. And then I got out of the habit of going. That's easy to do, like you just were saying,
Yep,
David.
straight up.
I have my own anxiety of going back to the church that I left to see people and being judged, but not because of them, but because of my being in my own head about being out of church so long. I don't live close to that church anymore and haven't had the nerve to try a new one by myself. I still have a relationship with Christ and worship, though.
And
That's a good point, Rachel.
And I'm sure my views and everything, they probably aren't that easy on her, right? But I will say, like, if you want to pair up with somebody, if you want to, obviously I could just say this to her, but I will watch the kids on a Sunday if you want to go try to find somewhere to get comfortable like that. And then Mike did that for you for a long time, right?
I took
you
mine
took
from
the
the
kid. You took the kids, but but he was okay with being home on Sunday while
He was,
right
for the most part.
And I'll support her with that.
And one thing I would like to add to that is same mindset, right? About like, they're gonna think this or whatever, and it's like at the end of the day, the people that I mentioned earlier at Most Excellent Way, 3 of them actually have reached out and been like, hey, are you doing okay? Not where have you been? Because if you say that to me, like where have you been or whatever, I probably ain't coming back. You know what I mean? Because then I'm already pre-deceiving or perceiving that you've got your predetermination there. But if you're just checking up on me, like, man, to me, that it means a lot, man.
Also,
people checking up on you is a bigger deal than what it may seem sometimes.
No, yeah, absolutely. 100%. All right, going to go into one of the hard ones to read here. I was 11 years old. There was an older guy. If I remember correctly, he was 18. He was an ideal churchgoer. And she, what is that? This one? Or
No, I was asking about where she went. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No free
I think
shout-outs?
so. Yeah. Either that or the big D one.
Big D one. There we go.
Not
bad. Yeah, no, not that.
Dallas.
Not that
Brain
church.
out of the skibbity toilet.
No, we're talking
Dallas.
Dallas. Drew got it. Big D got it.
Dallas.
Opie commenting saying that's pretty skibbity Ohio Riz there, Jeffrey. What the hell does this mean? I have to learn this stuff now, huh?
Oh,
Like as
Riz
a parent,
kid
yeah.
learning.
Riz might be one of the best ones. I got to give it to the generation. It means charisma.
Yes.
Charisma.
Oh,
So
so,
really, just because they're so stupid, they just shorten every word.
They
I
just
think-
talk about hitting up the girls in the hall like, I rizzed her up. I rizzed her up.
yeah. But then they have
Charisma.
some really stupid. Like, all right, dude.
It's
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
Bet.
Yeah.
No,
be all
bet's not even a
different.
thing anymore.
It really
Oh, well,
is.
for us it is though, and
Well,
it will
yeah.
always be.
Like this conversation is pretty bussin'. Is that what they say?
Bussin',
No.
baby.
I still say it, though.
Bussin'.
Bussin'.
I love Jeffrey over here cringing at a middle school lingo.
Oh yeah, you're not that far removed from it, are you, bro? Hey, shout out to Jeffrey, y'all.
I think his mom. Did your mom say she says that to aggravate you?
I love that. All right. I was 11 years old. There was an older guy. If I remember correctly, he was 18. He was the ideal churchgoer, and that's in quotations. He attended every service and loved to be involved with the youth groups. He took a liking to me and frequently sat next to me on the church bus and stuck around when we were on field trips. He lived around the corner from the church, and one day he asked me to walk over to his house to get his sister. He pulled me behind a fence, lifted my dress up, and shoved his fingers inside of me. Wrapped his hands around my neck and said awful things to me. It took 10 years to be ready to join another church. And I do, obviously this person is back in church, and this goes back to that conversation earlier, and this is the difficult part of it, right? Because this is just one of those things that you don't even know. There's nothing you can say, really. But how much did this happen that is not talked about? And it's important to know that these things happen and to shine a light on them, because the understanding element, right?
And as Kyle brings up a word of the younger generation, I don't know what letter it is these days. I think they're already back on A somehow, whatever. But he says the term unalive is super dumb. Well, I would say that people who do things like that probably should be unalived. But that's, not my decision to make that.
Right. And man, that's just
That's heavy, and
Yeah.
that takes. There's levels of church hurt that is catastrophic. I don't know, outside of God's grace, how somebody gets through that.
And the fact that she went back
yeah.
is the epitome
that's a
of amazing, honestly.
Yeah.
So I do want to shout. I'm obviously not gonna say her name, but she has a young child, who is has a lot of medical issues, and she just busts her ass for that kid. And if you're watching, I hope you are. I told you this last time I saw you. She bought me some beer over in Tallahassee that I wanted. She was on her way back from Gainesville with an appointment. She stopped off and she made a whole special trip to get me some beer. I worked with this person at a restaurant a long time ago, and just an incredible person, man. And we see you and we're proud of you for all the hard work you do for your kid. And man, wow, just to be able to go through stuff like that and still have your head level enough to go back and eventually your kid will pay the positive price for that as well.
I like that. Pay the positive price.
Yeah.
I'm getting that tattooed on me tomorrow.
Pay
on
the
my neck.
positive right up. There's right here on the bottom.
There we go.
PTPP. This one,
Forehead.
This one is this is the last one I'm going to read. So last year I was raped by these two guys, and I went to talk to my pastor's wife about it. And she basically flipped out, saying things like, well, we talked about you not going out. We just talked about not going out. I don't know how you are talking about this already, because most people don't for years. And why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? Never asked me how I
Probably was talking
doing.
about how she dressed, huh? Golly.
Gave me lists of ways that this could have been avoided. And that's just, again, this person who is probably at the top, not probably, if it's the pastor's wife, you're right, the first lady of the church, essentially.
Yep.
and you have a more powerful voice than any woman in that church on the human level, on the world level.
Yeah.
And this is how those people, not all of those people, but that's how this particular person chose to use her power instead of helping this person find their way back to God. And this is it's disgusting. And I'm talking only to not have dead air, but it leaves you speechless.
Yeah.
The gall that someone can say, how are you or why are you already talking about this? Yeah. Leaves me speechless. Yeah. I mean, if I was a woman and someone said that to me, or man, like, hey, it can happen on both sides of I might would slap somebody after that.
Because one of the things that gets said to women a lot is, why did you wait so long to come out about it?
Exactly. Right? Can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, bad saying for that, cliche for that, but still
right.
Same exact thing.
Yeah. So, I don't know where to leave it from there.
At the table.
Leave it at the table. Oh my God. There it is. So yeah, this whole conversation is being left at the table. I loved doing this. Did you have anything, you've had some meetings recently with some people. Did you have any of those that you wanted to share, or are those just
some people that were very close and precious to me that have shared some of their church hurt, and it's extensive. And, I asked the one today, what advice would she give someone who's gone through some serious church hurt? Because this person is still seeking her place in the body of believers. She wants to belong into the church for all the reasons that we've mentioned tonight. Mm-hmm. And she said just for her, there had to be a time where she just was away from it all. She had to step away from it all. And like I was saying, process her feelings, process the hurt, learn to forgive. She had to forgive. And like I said, it doesn't mean making it okay to that person. It means letting it go in order to move forward. And she feels like God's taking her on a path where she needs to be. She's still healing. She still has hurt. And this was years ago. Same with the other person, still looking for their place in the body of believers, because that's where, as Christians, we crave that presence. Like you were saying, you miss that energy from church when you were a child. You crave that, because I believe God creates us with a void that only that relationship, true relationship with Him, can fill. So those people that are precious to me that really had some struggles are still trying to find their place.
And that person and her husband, that relationship was not like super strong at the church. But I'll tell you, I have met this person a couple of times. They're involved with Mosley and Arnold, the football programs. We met them in the Mosley hallway.
Mosley and Arnold?
We met them in the Mosley hallway, and now they work at a different school.
Yeah.
So great, just a long-running relationship I've had with her and her husband. Incredible people. Precious. I didn't even know that they had found their way out of that other situation. Yeah. So that's news to me.
I watch those people, and not judging anyone who's had church hurt. Again, like I said, I haven't had it, other than my feelings hurt a little bit, and had a pity party. There is a way through it. Stay the course. Try to move on from it. God has something for you. He's going to use it for someone. That's what I would want to say. Jesus is the way. That's what I have to say.
Just want to leave it here and say, thank you everybody that watched, listened. Thank you guys for participating in this. It was not an easy conversation, but I think it was a very good one. I enjoyed this. I honestly am only stopping for time purposes because it's 9:00 and everybody's got places they got to be. We've had a large number of viewers the whole time that we've been here, and I appreciate you guys for sticking around. Thank you for all the insight in the comments. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your stories with me, and those who had the deep personal stories. Thank you for confiding in me and allowing, and trusting in me to keep those anonymous, number one, but to also feeling comfortable enough for me to come out here and share your story anonymously and be able to at least help you shine a light on those types of situations. So thank you. So drop that. Last thing before we get off the air today, want to leave this on a good note. 4th of July plans. What are y'all doing tomorrow?
Either going to the creek or absolutely nothing.
And that's
so
freedom.
More than
baby.
likely, absolutely nothing.
That's freedom.
If I wake up early enough, I'm going to go to the creek.
All right. Drew?
I got to cut the grass, but
That is also freedom.
yeah, unfortunately, cut the grass and then the fireworks show on the beach with my in-laws, my wife.
Beach or Beach Drive?
Beach.
Lame.
I'm beach.
Oh yeah, you are a beach boy. Oh my
My,
gosh! Shout out to the townies, my friend.
My wife's in New York visiting her sister, so I'm a single guy.
You're a
in it.
free
Well,
man. You're gonna go watch fireworks?
We will be at
Well, not single guy, but a lone guy.
Yeah.
Holler at me. Let's do nothing.
So I don't forget to mention this after. We'll be at my in-laws. We'll be blowing off fireworks once the sun goes down beside the house. So if you get a wild hair and want to come out there, you'll be there as well. So
Where's this at?
It'll my in-laws' house.
I know.
Drop the exact address.
Well, no, but like, all right, area of town.
You came and saw me after I got in the car accident there. That's where the
Oh,
yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Beach, east end of the beach.
Yes, sir.
Precisely.
They got the cool dogs.
Yeah. Well,
Dog,
it's just
yeah.
one dog now.
Oh.
They had,
Oh.
Yeah.
When I was there,
unfortunately.
was it one or two?
It was two.
Okay.
It was two. Yeah.
I think my mind's going crazy.
I'm going to join y'all. Thank you to the Cooper clan for letting me and Belinda tag along tomorrow. And our neighborhood's going to shoot off fireworks tomorrow night. Liam might spin some tunes out.
Talk about a block party.
Yeah. Dang, that's
Oh,
where I
Liam.
might want to be. Liam
Yeah.
hitting the going into it all. A lot of great comments there saying great episode from everybody. Got a text from Jordan Gibbs saying the same thing. David Ham. Oh, didn't even know Dave was in there watching. It's only like the same 4 or 5 people comment, and you got like 19 to 20 viewers the whole time.
Yeah.
Those are the ones
That's big.
I'm obviously grateful for the people that stayed and participated, but I am definitely thank you to the ones that stayed and watched the whole time.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, man.
Hey, good job, Jeffrey Cooper.
Yeah, thank
Well
you,
done.
Jeffrey Cooper.
Over there on the controls.
What a
Woo,
skibbity riz job you did,
Yes.
dog.
Can we show him?
Yeah, put it on him. Put
How
it
do I
on
do
him.
it?
There you go.
Jeffrey.
Skibbity dibbity. You're the champ. You're the champ.
Now go bust some tables.
Yeah, now get out of here. Oh, my goodness. That was behind the title. All right. Well, we'll keep.
What was it?
Nothing.
Skibbity-doo-dah.
Skibbity, my riz.
It was his pen.
Oh, your writing utensil.
My straight up riz pin.
Need it.
Awesome.
I think I have less riz on those kind of pens.
And that's the time we send it off.
That's time to end it. Thank you to everybody that watched, listened, participated. Thank you guys one more time.
Thank you
just
for
from,
having me, Kyle.
from the
Thank
bottom
you,
of our
gentlemen.
hearts.
I
Yeah,
loved
this-
hearing what you had to say.
I loved having
Thanks for being out.
Antina on with us.
Incredible insight, incredible debates. If we offended you, sorry, but
It was in
Go
love.
read your Bible.
That's
was
a free
not-
country.
Yeah, it's a free country. God bless America, and God bless you. We'll see you guys next week. Sports episode. We'll see you there.